One with 34,000 plant years and one with 35. I've got 6 or 7 bushel there before I even start. Now, we've been able to get around that by using the same planter. So we got half the planter planting twins with the clutch and our transmission at half speed and half of it planted in 30s. Use the same planter, the same mechanism to do it with, and you can zero up or bring in your counts a lot closer. But we would tell you here in Central Illinois, going to 20s or twins, it really doesn't make that much difference. Meaning that our yield response is similar in those 2 row spaces. Our long-term data over the last 15 years would say there's about a 7 to 10 bushel of damage for narrow rows to us at the same population. Now, I've seen as high as 60 bushel damage, and I've seen as wild as a 30 bushel loss in yield. When we're talking about row spacing and how it fits into your picture, it kind of comes down to how much water is available, nutrients, and sunlight. So if we look at narrow rows close here anyway. Our narrow rows will close 10, sometimes 14 days ahead of our 30-inch rows. How do we know this? We put quantum light readers out in the field, and we can monitor when they finally, actually almost to the hour when the rows close, to where we change the amount of light hitting the ground. So once you close the rows, you are doing a couple of things. One is you're conserving water by stopping evaporation. So if you think of your water loss out of the field, you have evaporation and transpiration, which comes through the plant. Now you're going to lose quite a bit more water through transpiration than you are evaporation. Evaporation is going to be faster on a daily rate, but eventually it's going to stop. So for instance, the amount of evaporation coming off your rock yard is pretty limited, because once we evaporate the moisture out of the surface, we break water retention, and evaporation comes down. So right after rain, the evaporation is high, and then it drifts down as we take the water out of the surface. But transpiration, if I got a plant with 5 foot of root system below it, it's sucking water from deep in the soil and bringing it out to the plant, so we're losing through transpiration. You want to lose all the water you can out of your field, though, through transpiration, not evaporation. Sunlight that hits the ground is wasted sunlight. It didn't produce starch. And water that's evaporated didn't produce starch either. So that's a wasted resource. So by narrowing up the rows and closing 10 days to 2 weeks earlier, you're going to provide more water through transpiration driving growth than you are if you let it evaporate off. And when you think about how valuable that water is, you could be losing up to a ½ inch a day through the evaporation process when it's taking place, and you might cut that to a quarter once you close the rows. Over that time period, you can save a couple inches of water. It takes 4,500 gallons of water to grow a bushel of corn. So it takes a lot of water out there. So any water that you can salvage or capture in that time frame is going to be a benefit, especially if limiting water availability is one of your concerns. Then, the other thing to go is once we capture all the sunlight that there is to capture, we have to be careful. If we look at evapotranspiration efficiency, so now we're taking evaporation and transpiration and we add them together. And we look at, in this case, we look at our leaf area going this way, and we look at evapotranspiration efficiency or loss going this way. And as our leaf area index goes up, going this way, our transpiration is going to go up. Our evaporation is going to go down. So as we're getting more and more canopy cover out there, we have less evaporation, but as we got more and more dry matter out there, we got more transpiration. And transpiration loss is going to be quite a bit higher than evaporation loss. So this is going to continue to climb the efficiency or the loss of evapotranspiration, until we finally canopy. When we close the rows and we're catching 95, 96, 97% of the sunlight, then she's going to flatline and it's not going to go any higher. So once your corn rows close and there's no sunlight hitting the ground, the amount of water coming off that field stabilizes. Now it changes per day depending on temperature and humidity and what's going on out here, but you have flatlined, meaning that no more water is going to leave that field at that point at a higher rate. So how do we get heavy canopy cover to close the rows? That's a population and row spacing formula, meaning we're going to get here quicker on twins than we would on thirds to close those rows. And at this point, we have captured all the sunlight, and that's where you want to get